Well, hello there. This is Shane with Shane's Reviews, and today we're going to be talking about a book that Audible really wanted me to look into, which is called Space 1969. And it was wrote by Bill Oakley. Written, wrote, same difference really, especially in today's language. A long time ago, I did a thing whenever Audible Originals first came out, asking the question, are they good? Are they distracting, or do they stay on point? I was kind of like on the borderline then because there's particular things in production that can really take you out of something. There are other things that can really bring you into it. Now, this book is a perfect example of some of the things to do and not to do. I really almost stopped listening to it. I didn't get it at first. Like the first 5 minutes was like absolute hell. Then I thought back to like the old school radio shows that used to happen a long time before TV was like such a prevalent thing and before, internet content, etc. Some of the radio shows were done in a way of which people would do live reads of the script, and then there would be a sound effects guy, so he'd have things to bang on and beat on, or make whistle sounds with, or shoes walking down the hallway. It was supposed to add to the immersion of the radio format, and it worked really, really well. I wasn't expecting that in this book, so that's why I did a complete 360 on that and actually started the book over and then really enjoyed it. I wish I had known up front that it was like a radio cast from back in like 1930s to 1940s, because if I had known that up front, I would have had a completely different expectation than what I did whenever I first started. You gotta ask the question, is the production any good? It is. It wasn't enough to get me to stop listening. The story is a good sci-fi telling of a alternate universe, and it was kind of unique to see. I think that some of the sound effects or acting in it might have been a little bit over the top, but I think it might have been over the top on purpose, trying to add comedic value to some of the things that were happening. So what is the premises of this book? Well, simply enough, John F. Kennedy ends up being president for not only his first term, but then an additional second term, and then just continues to be president. But it's good in a lot of ways. Let me just, if I tell you this, it's going to give away so much. But so we all know about Richard Nixon. I'm not a crook, all that kind of a thing. So he doesn't actually win the election where he should have been a president. So he ends up being a attorney instead, and eventually once and goes to the moon and then becomes the mayor of the moon. His role is more of a narrator throughout the book. So he's trying to tell the story, but it's the fourth wall is broken so much. There's jokes about him narrating inside of the book as he's trying to narrate. So at some points, the secretary has to narrate for him because he's gone to get a shirt. The complete book, if you just boil it down, is Kennedy ended up having himself shot in the eye with this magical material. It's a metal. This metal is a big plot point through the story. This is what's allowing him to live for so long. On top of it, it's what's causing all these mental breakdowns and comic gold of John F. Kennedy not being who he was in history, but more of a maniacal, totalitarianistic dictator that if somebody says something about him having orange from his face from eating an orange, he would have them killed. And he wants to take over the entire galaxy. Now, there's a big plot hole here. I don't think it really needs to be filled in because it just doesn't. Essentially, there's a voice in his head because of this metal. He thinks it's God. He thinks he's becoming God. He thinks he is God. But it's one of those stories where, depending upon where you are in the book, it could be the second older Kennedy or the younger Kennedy that thinks that this is what's happening. What has happened is this metal has gotten into this one individual, and now it is rewriting history. So all the things that would have happened in the 70s and all the things that would have happened in the 80s, because of that, are being completely rewrote, and there's a document that has these footnotes that keep changing. That's about all I want to tell you about the plot. That's what makes that book so interesting, really, is as it's changing, it is rewriting itself, but some of the people still have memories of what would have been if only this hadn't happened. Follow? It seems like it's really complex, but it's really not. The way that I'm trying to allude and not really give away a lot of the stuff is making it sound more mysterious than what it is. I think that the value in this book, for me personally, was that it didn't really give me an emotional response besides comic relief whenever I was really stressed. If it can pull me out of that zone and make me laugh, that's pretty good. Also, the character the plucky nurse, but then I got it. It went from, okay, you're kind of annoying to, oh, you're just one of those. Let's just see what happens. It's not like she's crazy, but it's one of those things where if you were in a situation where I'm not going to tell you a thing about that. Anyway, so the long or the short is this. Is it worth your time, efforts, and energies? Is it worth your money? Is it worth you sitting down and listening to this book? If you want something that's silly, that's satirical, and is definitely a throwback to the past, really was worth it, because I've listened to it 3 times now. I hate to admit to that, but I have listened to it 3 times now. There are little details that I pick up every time that I listen to it that I didn't catch the first time, which is just the way most people work. Yes, I applaud it. It was a good effort. I wish that I know that people at Audible probably will never see this, but whenever you have something that's this quality, but it fits a completely different genre from what we're used to. So, like whenever I look at this, here, I don't know if this, let me scoot back so you can hear me. Whenever you see that kind of a book cover, does that tell you that that's going to be a radio cast type of a deal, or something that's going to be outside just somebody narrating a book? Because there was a lot of music, there's a lot of sound effects, there was a lot of different kinds of voice acting. What I mean by that is whenever people grunt, or if they're fighting, you'll hear grunting from the people that are struggling back and forth, which is something that would be really hard to put down on page. So this is a thing that was it was thought out for those details alone, and those were put in there purposely. They had a reason to be there, and that's one of the things that once I actually allowed myself to be immersed, I highly enjoyed. If I were to listen to, let's say, a Repairman Jack book, and they had that kind of a thing in there, that would absolutely kill it for me because of what I'm used to over the years. If Repairman Jack had been done as a radio thing from the beginning, I would feel completely different about it. There's my thoughts on that anyway. Overall, I enjoyed it a lot. If you enjoy that sort of a thing, I would highly recommend you checking it out. To answer the question that I asked at the beginning of, is Audible Originals worth it still to this day? If they keep making stuff like this and the other things that I've seen them put out over the last couple of years, yes, I think that it is worth having an Audible subscription for these things alone, not to mention the way that they have brought in podcasts, etc. By the way, hashtag not sponsored. It's a good service. It keeps me entertained, and that's the reason why I've quite dug this book. So if you've made it this far, you are my personal hero. Thank you so much for watching. Question of the week: what if you had a tuning fork that every time that you struck it on something, devices would change? Like, let's say this on-air sign behind me that ironically enough is not lit. Let's say that you strike that tuning fork and then that turns into a plastic box containing a bottle of your favorite beverage. I don't care if it's an energy drink or just water. What if you struck it and something else near you had a small little triangle of metal inside of a cellulite box or something like that? These sorts of things are possible in that book. But if you found yourself in that situation, what would you feel? Would you think that you were losing your mind? Or would you just go with it? That's what I want to know down there. Let me know what you think. Beyond that, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, and if you want to make fun of us, make sure that you share this off to somebody else. That'll work. I love your faces. Thank you so much for watching. I'm not sure which one of the videos that you'll pick, but if you get this one right here, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.